you see, mother knows best up here. When I was a kid, it was always, Paul, if you learn one, you'll do okay with it. But if you do one, you'll know it a little bit better. And if you teach one, then you're going to master it. You're going to have no trouble doing this. So that's kind of always been in the back of my head. So I spent 5 years with hands-on science. And then after doing 5 years of hands-on science with a company, getting kids to actually take forks and all that kind of stuff and put it together and recognize what concepts they can learn from different science things that we're working with, then I decided I need to go into a classroom. This is great, but I want to get more kids enthused about how I can do this. And when I got into a classroom, I worked for 14 years and ended up finding that, well, the classroom's great, but I can't bring the stuff that I want to bring to it. So I became a science Olympiad coach. I became a robotics coach. I worked hands-on science and hands-on learning into the way that I was able to teach kids. And the face of a kid who takes on a project and that's not really something they ever would have taken on before is what I started to live for. I got to a point where I could connect so well with kids that parents would give me trunkfuls of stuff at Christmas, and I would bring them home and my wife would think, well, I'm at the wrong school. I need to get to another school, because my wife was also a teacher at the time, and she'd bring in a little bag full of Christmas stuff. And she's like, what are you doing? And I was getting whole hams. And parents were like, here, happy Christmas. Go have, wow, this is great. But it was, I started to recognize teaching is not about, it's not about just delivering the instruction. There's something that has to work here. You have to get a connection in some way. So after 14 years and switching a district and losing all of my years of service, they didn't need me anymore. They said, oh, well, you don't have enough years of service in our district, so sorry, the way climate's going, goodbye. So I sat down and I said, well, what am I going to do? I can do anything I want at this point. So I chose, let's make a big impact in the world. So I chose to be a leader in the transformation of education around the world. And that's when I met Christine. And you heard the rest, right? So I want to tell you a little bit about transformational learning as opposed to informational learning. And they're basically, informational learning is like a linear learning pattern. And transformational learning is something that it can be even considered as three-dimensional, or big giant jumps that happen where you weren't expecting these big giant jumps to happen. So to do that, I want to tell you this story. I have a 3-year-old who loves to play this game on the way to school. I have a 6-year-old who likes playing the same game. It's called Lelo Car. And so my son, the way he says it is, Lelo Car. So he'll be looking out the windows and he'll see a yellow car, and then you know that, oh, he gets a point. And my daughter, she's looking for red cars, and she yells out red car. Now I'm supposed to look for blue cars, but they really find them for me type of thing, right? So we play this game, and my daughter starts kindergarten, and she's starting to develop this whole notion of I'm stupid. So she'll come home, and things won't go her way, and she'll end up on the middle of the living room floor, kicking and screaming, and yelling out things like, well, I'm just stupid, and run into her room and crying and crying. And I think, what? How's this going to, where did this come from? So, one day after this tantrum, I go into her room, and I lay down on her bed with her, and I say, you know that game we play, Yellow Car? And she's like, yeah. And I said, I think when you're looking for I'm stupid in the world, it's like looking for the red car. So you're always looking, and your red car is the I'm stupid, I'm stupid, I'm stupid. And you see it because you're looking for it all the time. So you go to school, somebody says something, and you get the I'm stupid, and you get it. What if we change it? What if instead of you looking for the red car, let's change, now you're going to go look for black cars. And the black car is going to be, I work hard and I do good work. And she got it. Somehow that made sense to her. She goes to school literally the next day, comes home, and she says, Dad, you won't believe it. Mrs. Wilson, her teacher, said I work hard and she could see my good work. And her face was bright and lit up, and I thought, oh, this is great. This is going to be the beginning of, happily ever after, right? It doesn't quite work that way, but you could see that adjustments have been made. And just yesterday, she says to me, "Let me feel your muscles." Okay, sure. So feeling, okay, come feel mine now. And I was expecting a little kid's muscle, right? And she surprised me, and I forgot that for the last 10 weeks, she's been working on these rings at school where she couldn't do them at first. She'd just get on and fall down and like, oh, I can't do these. And then she'd come home with blisters on her fingers. And she shows me her muscles, and I'm like, oh my gosh, look at that. That's amazing. She's like, huge definition. That's fantastic to see you doing this, working hard and doing good work. And it's starting to show. This new voice in her head is starting to show. That's a form of transformational learning. She, at one point, was thinking one way, something snapped, and all of a sudden she's seeing herself in a different way, or seeing learning in a different realm. So another example is the history of art. In the history of art, for thousands of years, artists were painting pretty much like this. Since the beginning of art, and I mean, I'm really generalizing here, so go with me on this case. But since the beginning of art, it was basically like this, two-dimensional. You could see, you could get the images, you got what was going on here, small faces, they're very flat, the boat doesn't really look like it just doesn't make a whole lot of visual sense. If you've played video games recently, this does not look like today's video games. Well, somewhere in between medieval art and the Renaissance, there was an integration. You add in study of perspective, you add in study of science, you add in study of shading, you add in study of the human form. And you get a transformational jump. Like, this is thousands of years up to this point. And then within about 200 years, you get something that looks like that. Done in 1527, a little more than 200 years. And you get a huge jump in the way art is actually done. And that's because of a transformational shift, a perspective, a look. If you just take what was there 200 years ago and this big boom, that's an amazing transformational shift. Okay, so what are we doing? Sorry, I have to read this to you, but here it is. One of our most important tasks for Fana Charter School, Global Charter School, is to find curricula that match the values of the charter school team, support collaboration among the staff, engage a diverse range of learners, and elicit student mastery through meaningful practice and through project-based learning. So curricula that's designed around self-expression, and you have a perfect example right there, doing this, right, walking around the room, he's self-expressed. That's not the way school always works, right? It's sit down, be quiet, follow directions. We don't want that. We want self-expression. We want debate and supported argument between kids. 5-year-olds, I want them to debate, in a sense. 4-year-olds, I want them to debate. They do it already, right? My toy, your toy, they don't, that. And deliberately scaffolded for the mastery of content. So if you don't know what scaffolding is, it's just break it down into small chunks so kids can get it, get the feedback that they need, and then that way they can move forward in these little jumps that they're going to need to take. All right, so areas of focus. We're focusing obviously on the basic areas. Language arts and STEAM, which includes science, technology, engineering, arts, math, including health, fine arts, and finance. They fit into that as well, but those are things that we want to focus on specifically. Social studies, character, values, professional learning communities, and project-based learning. So I want to talk to you about how these areas of focus meld together with this whole core curriculum. Okay? Here's an example. We chose SWAN Math for our math program. And it follows this sort of general pattern. Teacher orientation. So the teacher kind of says, okay kids, where are we? What are we doing today? This type of thing. And it gets the kids focused on what they're supposed to do. Next thing, teacher presentation. Here's how you're going to do these steps. Nobody's doing anything. You're just watching. All the kids are watching. Step 1, step 2, this is how you do this particular piece of math. Then student-teacher practice. So now, here kids, we're going to do this problem together. Everybody do it together. And it could be on a whiteboard, it could be however the teacher decides to do that, but they're getting practice together. Then after that, we have guided practice where students work in small groups on their own. and the teacher pulls out students that need the reinforcement in the smaller basic areas. Then student collaboration, they talk with each other about their answers and how they got their answers. Because you and I all know if you want to go from here to Catalina Island, it seems like there's one way, but there's not. There are a lot of different ways to get there. Same in math, same in learning. We all know that there are lots of ways to get there. Kids will show us ways that we never thought could happen. Student presentation, a student is randomly chosen to teach in front of the class. Every kid gets to teach in front of the class with this math program. Every kid gets to hear their peers tell them how well they did, where they could work in different areas, and it's not about making them wrong. It's just about showing them where they can improve their presentation skills or their steps in learning the math or teaching the math. And last but not least, they have independent practice and homework that they're going to work on. So this whole curriculum was already designed by somebody from Singapore, and we're just using that, and it already fits with what our goals are and what we're looking for. All right, so one thing that we also want to do is make sure that we have teachers and parents that are able to do the same style of learning that we want our students to do. So if you know anything about these professional learning communities, it involves a culture that supports collaboration. It involves the ability to take an objective or macro view of how the school is doing their work. And lastly, it gets people that all have the same shared beliefs to work together collaboratively. And parent education, some of the things that we want to do are have evening for parents to share. How are things going with you at your school? Is there anything at home that is affecting your ability to parent or your children to get their work done that they need to? So they come together and share with us, and we have feedback sessions on that. Classes to teach what the students are learning. Okay, this week, this month, we're going to be making sure you know what to expect that you're going to see at home. And then classes for parents to learn. So if there are parents that want to beef up their skills in other ways of parenting or in English or in any other area that they want to, they'll tell us in this evening for parent sharing, and we'll provide for them to be a piece that Charlotte was saying, so that the school is a community piece. It's not just a school. It's there as part of the community. How this is going to get done? Byron's going to tell you about our facilities. All right? You ready? Want me to get you here? Of course.